Okay, we're good to go. Okay, so you just told me how to say the tribe, so I'm gonna try to do it again. Your tribe name is Kwakwaka'wakw.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so would you be able to give me some of the history of your tribe and the region that they come from and the belief system of that tribe?
Okay. So first off, Gela Kasla, greetings. My name is Thomas Sewid, a member of the Mamliacha tribe of the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, which is otherwise known as Indians from northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. Our Kwakwaka'wakw Nation is made up of 16 recognized tribal groups that all have their shared language of Kwakwala, which is our language, and Kwakwaka'wakw just simply means the Kwakwala speaking people. And we all have our own tier structures tribally and by chiefs and the individuals under them. But the chief has what we call a gildas, a symbolic box of treasure that is filled with all of his family's names that are being used and others that are, left when the person died, but went back in the box to be reused again. But it also has our songs and our songs that are attached to crests. And the crests are also in the box. So eagles, ravens, thunderbirds, whales, grizzly bears are all part of our crest, natural animals and supernatural ones. But the highest ranked crest we have is Chonacha, the wild woman of the woods, the female Sasquatch. The male Sasquatch is so held in such high esteem that it's used by all of the families so that when a chief dies 3 years or longer after his death, we have a mourning period. The family makes regalia, which is the outfits to bring to the dance floor with the masks to open the box of treasure and share the crest. And they all have title to Chonacha, the wild woman of the woods, but we also all have title that when chief dies and the new chief does all of his obligations of hosting a potlatch and acquiring gifts, maybe getting a $200,000 cedar tree carved into a memorial totem pole with the chief who died's many crests. They'll put the Jonah crests on many of those memorial poles at the bottom. And that's the wild woman of the woods with puckered up lips and big breasts, outstretched arms, sleepy eyes. And it's to show that the chief in his lifetime was wealthy and had the title of the crest of the female Sasquatch. But when that pole is raised and the heir to the throne, I guess you could say, the new chief to be, feeds all of his guests over a 2 day or a 1 day period during the potlatch ceremony that can last for 20 to 48 hours. When he gives gifts to everyone that isn't his direct family member at the end, he's done all his obligations, and the Helicum, the chief speaker of the potlatch, will come over and put a wooden mask of a male Sasquatch with mustache and goatee. And that chief will dance in all his button blanket regalia and his cedar bark rings. And it's said to be that that man is being touched by the Sasquatch, the Tunacha. And now with that mask, it solidifies that he's now no longer the heir to the chieftainship. He is the chief, the Queen, the clan territorial hereditary chief. So when you go into these ceremonial big houses, they're basically our cathedrals, our chapels, our museums, our lecture halls, our theaters. And inside, great cedar trees are carved into vertical posts, house posts, holding the roof beams up. And the back wall where the chiefs sit that come and witness the potlatch, and all of the male drummers that sit around a hollow cedar log that might be a meter thick and maybe 10 meters long. It's hollowed out so that when they bang on it with hardwood batons and sing in deep baritone song, it sounds like thunder erupting. And with that booming voices of 30 plus men, and the center fire and all of those crest figures, the thunderbirds, eagles, whales, grizzly bears, chunach, double-headed sea serpent called Sisiyuth, and other things carved and painted. It's like being in a spiritual realm when you watch the crests come to life and dance with the song and drumming. And of course, every family will display what an ancestor of theirs witnessed in regards to a tunach, a Sasquatch, be it a Sasquatch taking misbehaving children and putting them in her basket, or maybe like my family, a basket on her back when the tunach, a Sasquatch dancer comes in regalia on the dance floor. It postures, rubbing its eyes because it's tired. It's yawning because the ancestor, when he witnessed it, woke it up during the daytime because Sasquatches are nocturnal. And then it goes and it whoop, 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 sort of like my design on my t-shirt. And when that's happening, at the end of the dance, the Arjuna look all like it's anxious and panicky, and it's whistle chirping and whooping, and all of a sudden it hears a whistle chirp but high pitched like a child, and it squats down on the floor, and a small family member in Chunach regalia and outfit and mask comes running on the floor and jumps into the mother's basket on her back, and the Chunach stands up and walks off the dance floor. Basically, that is the song's telling you what one of my ancestors witnessed when he saw a Sasquatch one time when he was out in the traditional territories. So when you come to Vancouver Island and you go to places like Campbell River, Duncan, Alert Bay, Port Hardy, it's like coming to King Kong Island in the movies. They're not effigies of gods, Kong. They're carvings, memorial poles, welcoming poles, house posts, masks. It has the highest concentration of wood Sasquatch carvings on Earth, Vancouver Island and the outer island, Alert Bay. So a lot of people don't understand that. You know, they see these, oh, that's a totem pole, but they don't understand how to read that totem pole. That figure at the bottom in the graveyard is a memorial pole for a chieftain who passed, and that big breast, puckered lip, sleepy eyed, maybe arms outstretched carving at the base is a Sasquatch. And, you know, it's my job, I guess you could say, to educate the masses that when you come to be at Washington State and go to the Seattle Art Museum, or you go to downtown Seattle and go to the Occidental Square and you see the Chonocha carving welcoming post, the museum has it. Then when you get to Victoria on Vancouver Island, there's carvings in the Museum of Sasquatch. And as you travel up island into the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, Lehwata, southern tribes of our people in Campbell River area, you see the Chunacha Sasquatch carvings. And if you make it to Alert Bay, you see the ceremonial big house all painted with native designs out front in the shadow of the world's tallest totem pole standing, and the dirt parking lots filled with vehicles. Walk up there. It might be a summer tourism performance of our regalia dancers and songs in the ceremonial big house, so you witness what it's like at potlatch to a certain extent. Or maybe it is a chief holding a potlatch, and we don't send out invitations and we don't define who can and cannot come to a potlatch. When the speeches and dances are taking place, the door attendants have the doors closed. But soon as the dancers' speeches end, they'll open the door so people can leave and go have a cigarette or do whatever. But also the people outside standing there, white, native, whatever, they open the door and Yalla Kasla, greetings, come grab a seat. And you go inside and you're in our cathedral, our theater, our ceremonial gyuxi, our big house, and you get to witness a potlatch. And if you stay until the wee hours of the early morning, tired, bum sore from sitting on a wooden platform, smoke burning eyes from the central fire, and all of a sudden, as you try not to yawn, the floor gets filled with gifts, and the family members come out, and everyone in the house will get a multitude of gifts: blankets, towels, baskets, coffee cups, thermos cups, kids' toys, the list goes on. Even money. They'll go around the house and hand money out to everyone. So being a Kwakwaka'wakw, I'm proud to say that of all the North American Indian tribes that I've interacted or researched to date, my tribe has the closest tie to the Sasquatch, the Chunahua, male and female. And my role is to be the, I guess you could say, educator. So that Sasquatch is getting so popular in television, social media, the internet, stores selling merchandise all through where I'm at in Washington State, and even up in British Columbia. And I even hear it's like that in Minnesota and South Carolina and Alabama and Florida. Sasquatch is a big ticket item. And, I'm reminded as I do my expeditions and advertise to people that I do Sasquatch expeditions, it reminds me of back in 1980 when I was 15 and I had a speedboat and I was one of the first humans, if not the first, to do a commercial boat-based whale watch for orcas that summer of 1980. And I also did that summer the first ever grizzly bear boat tours in British Columbia, if not North America. And then the following year, I participated in the first ever sea kayak adventure to paddle with whales. I was the Indian guide. So I seen those industries turn into multi-million-dollar industries, and they're now not in Canada, they're throughout the world. They're doing sea kayak trips, whale watching, bear tours. And, people, when they hear that I'm doing Sasquatch tours, expeditions, and I've put 22 people on a Sasquatch to encounter one, they don't call me crazy. They call me a visionary. And I see that, a day is going to come where Sasquatch expeditions, tours, merchandise sales, stores will be far surpass whale watching, sea kayaking, bear tours combined. That's how huge the Sasquatch industry is becoming. I just ran back. I was late for the interview because I was at the store, sasquatchlegend.com. And you can go to the online website, sasquatchlegend.com, and see the thousands of merchandise items we sell, Sasquatch related. And, I got called in because there's some people there that wanted to meet Tom Sewid, this well-known social media star, television celebrity, Sasquatch conference speaker, performer, artist, expedition specialist. They wanted me to meet me. I had to go get my picture with the big Sasquatch mannequin and autograph a hat that they bought with one of my designs on it. So it's nice to see the recognition that I'm getting for my decades of hard work trying to help develop this Sasquatch industry. And, look at you phoning me all the way from across the Atlantic Ocean to interview Tom Sewid about Sasquatches. So it's humbling, but at the same turn, it's nice to see that it's really getting the recognition and attention that it deserves.
But why do you think that why, like when you speak about it, you're speaking about it so sort of like you just say, oh, Sasquatch, like it's another, like another animal in the woods. Why do you think there's a difficulty for the scientific community then to see it as an actual animal? What is where do you think the kind of mismatch is, or why is it not just recognized?
Governments of Canada, the United States, and Australia go to their capital D small r period before their names with alphabet soup of degrees after their name on their business card or the wall of their office and say, look, you get government funding. The last thing we want is another indigenous tribe in Canada or the US. Canada has three recognized indigenous tribes: First Nations, Indians like me, Inuit up in the Arctic, and the Métis, the half breeds that just got recognition 5 years ago. We cost Canada well over $2 billion a year. And then the United States has two recognized tribes: the Inuit of northern Alaska and the North American Indians of Alaska and the lower 48. And they have their hands full with the Hawaiian indigenous over in the Hawaiian Islands. So the governments know that it costs billions of dollars because of these dang indigenous people. Australia, no different with the Aborigine that were considered not even human, flora and fauna until 1974 in Australia, until the laws were changed and they were recognized as humans. Now they're fighting for their land claims, their rights, their title. And in Canada, if you want to take resources from what we call Crown land, the province of British Columbia or elsewhere, there's a Supreme Court decision that you have to have proper consultation with the local Indian tribes. And you have to have support and permission from those Indian tribes if you want to fish farm Atlantic salmon, or you want to log, mine, build a pipeline, develop a town, urban sprawl. You know, you better be nice with the Indians and get their Caesar thumbs up. Otherwise, you ain't doing your industry. So we Indians, we indigenous, are very powerful. We're more Canadian than Canadian, more American than American, So the last thing the government wants is all of a sudden someone coming forward and saying, I'm a doctor of DNA and I have found and confirmed with all conclusivity that Sasquatches are the other tribe, as the Indians have always said. They're humans. So in turn, they need to be recognized and they have to have their land claims. Now, Canada and the US know that, back in the day, they had to invent the Gatling gun, the machine gun that spun, so they can mow down the Indians and make cattle ranches and towns and cities and push railway lines through and gold mine and everything else. The easiest way to deal with the problem was with lead. Kill the damn Indians and do what we want to do. Rape and pillage the North America. And Australia, no different. Let's shove all our Aborigines in Australia and let's shove all our Indians in Canada and the United States into four corner posts called the Indian Reserve. And we were exiled and still are in Canada into our own traditional territories to be within the confines of our Indian reserves. Up until 1961, we had to have a permission slip from the Indian agent to leave our Indian reserve. That's Nazism, totalitarianism. And now we have our rights and title, and we're more Canadian than Canadian. So if you're a cattle rancher in Canada, US, and you have thousands of hectares of land that your great grandpappy developed back in the day when he shot all the Indians, and you want to go mow down 300 hectares of trees and plant alfalfa so you can get $200 a bale from the Saudi Arabians for their Arabian horses. It's happening in North America, you know. But now you got to do an environmental assessment on whether or not you can remove those trees, and will it have a negative ramification to the local Sasquatches that are confirmed to exist? Hell yeah. It's going to be tied up in red tape. And just like in London, England, I've been following some stuff there. That tree and those trees are not being cut down. And in turn, the cattle farmer is going to lose millions. The mines that want to be developed or expanded, the fracking for petroleum, the drilling for natural gas, the strip mines for coal and uranium, and pipelines and urban development will come to a complete standstill. So the identification, confirmation of Sasquatch or Yowie in Australia will affect our GOPs. And there's no bloody way the government wants that. And I know for a fact that the governments of Canada and the US are hunting Sasquatches right now from
Really?
helicopters. They're exterminating them. That's why we're seeing an influx of urban edge Sasquatch activity. The edge of our farms, our towns, our cities, Sasquatch encounter reports are going up significantly. And yet out in the wilds, the Sasquatch encounters are depleting. And I think the governments, because it's at night when I go outside here and have a cigarette, pitch black, I can hear the hell helicopters doing flying around at night. Training, yes, totally understand that. But what about the ones that get away so a human can't hear the rotors? You just go to
Wow.
YouTube and look at Blur, how far it's come for the Taliban's and other places where you can watch humans getting popped like zits with machine guns and rockets and perfect illumination from the FLIR device, the infrared device, that we see these people being seen. They're hiding in the bushes, trying not to be seen. But that old helicopter guy just squeezes the trigger when he gets lock on, and next thing you know, that human pops like a zit. So that's what's happening with Sasquatches. So, people always ask, how come the scientific community doesn't want to research the existence of Sasquatch? Because some government agent went in there and said, look, you get money from the government for your university, for your laboratory, for your different programs that you're studying and different things. Well, you best stay clear of the supposed Bigfoot Sasquatch. They don't exist. You get what I mean, boy? And right away, that professor, oh yes, 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 I understand. I'll go study fruit flies instead, you know.
But so can you explain some of your own encounters? Like what is what have your own encounters been like with the Sasquatch?
My first encounters were just drive. First one was driving down the highway with dad when I was like 11 or 12, and we saw a guardrail and thought it was a human, but it was a Sasquatch. Put its left hand down and bring and jump and see all its hair and everything. And dad's like, "Oh wow, we just saw a Sasquatch." And I was, holy, they really exist, I guess. And it wasn't until early 1990s when I anchored my commercial salmon fish boat out in Village Island, where I had a 26-foot caravan trailer with a 10 by 10 addition I'd built a couple years prior for a Watchman's tourism program I was doing for my tribe. And you gotta remember, my abandoned native village is, I guess, maybe 12 miles off the Vancouver Island east northeastern shoreline at the mouth of Knights Inlet and a cluster of islands, Old Broughton Archipelago, and just a couple people live out there. And back then, one or two fish farms. And when we anchored out there in the early 1990s before a commercial fishery by a few days, we're just being young and getting crabs and picking plums in the abandoned native village that afternoon. And we were cooking crabs on the deck in a Coleman propane stove. And we heard something on the beach, and we ended up hearing whistle chirps and smelled this god awful stench. And we put the spotlight on and illuminated a big male and a female out on the female was at the high tide level of the beach. I think she was eating sea asparagus because the tide was kind of half and high rising. And it was just about high tide, so they weren't going after shellfish. So I think she was eating the sea asparagus. The big male was up and above the high tide mark in the grass and small evergreen saplings. And when we put the spotlight on him, he just dropped on his knee and brought his arm up in front of his face. And you see one eye, one and a half eye, one eye, two eyes, as he was moving with his arm in front of his face. The female dropped on the beach like that into a fetal position with her head on the ground, her knees on the ground, and her buttocks facing us. But you could see her eye reflecting from under her armpit as she was looking at the boat and spotlight. Good 20, 25 minutes. We tried everything to get them to move, but they wouldn't. We even grabbed the camera, but we didn't have 35 millimeter film. And, you got to remember that's early 1990s before digital cameras and cell phones. And turned the spotlight off, and we could hear them moving into the bush, crack, snap, making movement. And then all of a sudden, I guess the male pushed a big dead hemlock tree down. And a hemlock tree, it was probably that much diameter, maybe 30 centimeters. And it was rotten. You could hear the sound of it breaking and just exploding when it hit the ground. They disappeared. Hour and a half later, the big male came out again, and we saw him again and lit him up on the spotlight and really got a good view of him. And basically, it was just big hair covered bipedal shoulders are about, I guess, maybe as wide as a 45-gallon drum barrel. And they went into the bush, whistle chirped at one another. You hear them come together and walk through what we call salal under the forest canopy. We have salal bushes. They're flat leaf, and it sort of sounds like if you have a big plastic tarp or swimming pool and you make that noise, that's what it sounds like when you walk through salal, very noisy, and we could hear it. And, I've had numerous other encounters. I've been out in the bush. I lived in the bush for over 26 years. I was a bear hunting guide for grizzly and black bears for quite a few years. I would watch logging camps in the wintertime by myself and fishing resorts that shut down in the winter by myself. I would basically just live in bush. I loved it out there. And then commercial fishing and food fishing as a native, we used to go out because we're Indians are allowed to fish 365 days a year. We go fish for our families. Yeah, we'd sell a bit too and make some extra money. You got to pay for fuel and cigarettes and beer somehow. And, prawns, big shrimp back in the day were $10 a pound for the tails. So you get 1,000 pounds of shrimp tails a day. That's big money, and would bring us to places because we knew the federales, the fish cops, would be looking for us. So we'd go way up the head of inlets, deep into the island chains, so we weren't seen or heard. And, you know, you'd be sitting there and it's big tide, and it's like, hey, let's go to the beach tonight. They got a bucket of clams. I wouldn't mind bringing some clams and shellfish home because one of our delicacies is cockles. And I know cockles grow in your neck of the woods,
Yeah.
but our cockles go to about that big, and man, they're good eating. So, you go ashore, you'd be on the beach digging away under a lantern, and all of a sudden you'd hear tree bang, maybe a tree being pushed down. And then you'd always go, okay, it's your turn. Bring the cockles up, because cockles, you don't get that much. You might get 300 clams in one cockle. So you have a bundle of cockles for your digging over a couple hours. You got to take an armload of cockles up the beach. It's low tide, so you might have to walk 100 meters. And you get up to this forest wall that's just tar black. You can't see nothing. And you can smell the Sasquatch. And they're right inside that bush as you start throwing the cockles in, giving them a gift, giving them their favorite food. And you won't even hear them smashing them to open them. They gather them up and they leave quietly and leave you be. You're at peace with the Sasquatch then. You were on their shellfish bed. They were coming down from the forest to come have a night dig. They know when low tide is. All of a sudden, here's a bunch of these damn humans out there with lanterns and digging away with metal implements. And they can't get a feed of cockles. So it's up to us to go feed them. And that's the harmony and balance we native tribes on the coast of my nation have with Sasquatch. We'll never ever think of harming one, disrespecting one, or shooting one, killing one. No way. We will never do that. It's so disrespectful and so against our culture, heritage, and laws.
What I mean, what would you say to someone who doubts their existence? Because you're obviously like you're speaking about it and it's so real for you. So what is it like when you hear someone saying that they don't think that it's a real animal? Like how do you what does that feel like for you?
Usually, the first thing I do is I look at their neck. If I see a St. Christopher, a crucifix, or a cross, I go, I don't know about you, but I've seen Sasquatch over half a dozen times up close. When was the last time you saw your God? And the look of their face usually puts them in their place. And then after that, I follow it up with, I go, ignorance is bliss, they say. Well, if you weren't so dang ignorant, you'd realize and know or want to know that my Indian tribe, the Sasquatch, is our highest ranked crest. Displaying it, whether it be a shirt or a carving or a mask, is like having a Rolex or a Mercedes Benz or a Lamborghini. You're proclaiming your right, title, and prestige and how high you are on the social structure because your chief and family have title to the female Sasquatch, Chonaka. So I don't know about you being a skeptic. I know one thing. For 26 plus years, while you were enjoying flush toilets, running water, and electricity in a warm house, I was sleeping under a plastic tarp in a hammock between trees out deep. And I'm talking days upon days deep in the coastal British Columbia rainforest, all by myself with my shotgun and my rifle. And I heard, smelled, saw Sasquatches. And when I went to my elders and asked them, what should I do when I run into Sasquatches as I am? They told me to speak Kwakwaka'wakw to them, our language. They know it in our territories. And I
Wow.
did.
Hmm.
And that Sasquatch stood up, put its hand up, turned, and walked away. He gave me respect because I gave him respect. And I've always respected Sasquatches. I've eye locked with them a few times. Only once was it an aggressive encounter. That's when I built 5 cabins on Eastern Vancouver Island for sea kayaking with whales adventures. And I just did like any other human. I just went down there, started chainsaw cutting down trees and bushes and banging with a hammer and electric saws with a generator running, and within 4 days, all these cabins are up. I made them prefabricated at my house and brought them in with a landing craft barge. That's why I went up so quick. But then the Sasquatches came down, and all of a sudden they weren't happy. So they got very aggressive with me, shaking trees, rolled a big boulder about the size of a smart car, small little vehicle, down into my camp. And I eye locked one that looked at me and showed me that he was pissed off, angry with me, what I'd done. So I made peace with them, um, and let it be known I wasn't leaving. And I've been in peace with them ever since. Every time I go to those cabins, 1 out of 10 times, they'll make their presence known, whether it be vocalization, showing themselves, us smelling their odor, and but we're at peace, we're at harmony. And that's something humans can't even get figure out nowadays. That's why I call Sasquatch the perfect human. They don't have fire. And what has fire gotten us? It has gotten us the Iranians and Israelis and Americans, Putin, Rocket Man in North Korea, even the English leader with fingers ready to push buttons to eradicate the entire planet with nuclear weapons.
Hmm.
That's because their ancestor took two rocks and clicked them together and made a spark and made fire. Sasquatches have laws, very strict laws, as I've been taught from a couple different shamans of different Indian tribes. And having laws, very strict laws, they're not allowed to have fire. In most cases, they don't use tools. They don't have weapons. They don't have warfare.
Hmm.
And they're in harmony and balance with nature as the creator intended for bipedal creatures to be like. So when we look at the bipedal creatures, Sasquatch and human, and we look at the quads, like the monkeys and the orangutans and the mountain gorillas and the chimpanzee and the bonobo, well, they're all at harmony with nature. It's just us hairless bipedals that aren't. Sasquatch is. So we have a lot to learn and gain from opening our minds to, number one, accept the existence of Sasquatch, because mythology doesn't leave tracks, dung, is seen harvesting foods, is seen hunting animals, is found their nests, their beds throughout the United States. We've even found their temporary shelters called earth houses made of branches. We found their tree structures, which are menstrual and birthing huts for the females to let the males know as they're hunting and harvesting and scouting, not to go near the females that have female blood of birth or menstruation. That's what a teepee structure is all about, or a lean-to. They can't retain heat, wind blows through them. They can't expel water or snow, so all they are is structures so that the female in there menstruating or birthing, the males don't come near. Because every Indian tribe in North America, and some even to this day, we men aren't allowed, that hunt aren't allowed around woman blood. It's taboo, it's bad. So, you know, Sasquatch, as I said, have a lot to teach us. And that's why I want to see the conclusive proof in the existence of Sasquatch. Number one, we'll smarten up and quit destroying the planet like parasites, and we'll get better environmental laws in place and control industry and others. And in turn, we'll learn that, yeah, we better be like them. We better not have such structured religion that we would fight one another just because of the God we believe in. Muslims, Christians, even your country, you bloody Christians couldn't even get along back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, blowing each other up left, right, and center.
Yeah.
What happened to you guys? Who gave you guys a smack upside the head and said, behave yourself? I know it wasn't the British Army or government.
Um, what do you think is going to be conclusive evidence, like in terms of where it can no longer be ignored? Do you think like really good video, or what do you think?
Yes. Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall never killed their subjects
Yeah.
or brought a body in, but they made it to the cover of National Geographic with heavy duty editorials with a lot of pictures, and no one questions the existence of the mountain gorilla or a chimpanzee. I've never seen the physical evidence of a bonobo, but I've read the article in National Geographic. I've seen the documentaries, and then I firmly believe that there's another branch of the chimpanzee species called a bonobo. And I've never seen an orangutan in my life, but I believe they exist, know they exist. So, yes, getting it to the cover of National Geographic, proving to exist. Why I and my team members have been purchasing, when they were available, P1000 Nikon cameras with built-in telephoto lenses, because at 200 meters, I can zoom it in and you'll see on video the movement of pupil dilation, the movement of eye blinks, the movement of facial muscles when they're eating or drinking, the movement of standing up, getting down, walking, and the muscles moving, tendons stretching, and so forth. And when you bring it to the capital D small r period before their names, doctors, and they analyze the video and look at it and confirm that, yeah, as a dentist, a professor of dentistry at this university, you can tell by the staining that they must be eating a lot of roots, because I've identified heavy staining of brown on the teeth, like people speak about Sasquatches when they see them up close, going like that. And my staining's from nicotine and coffee, because I drink my coffee black like all men should. No lattes for me. I'm a bushman. I wrestle grizzly bears for a living for 20 plus years. And so, you got to look at the videos. And nowadays, with the cell phones we have, the GoPros and other knockoff cameras like that, 4K and higher K, the cameras we have that are 4K and above, cell phones that are just amazing. We just need to get that Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction going on, which my team members are trying in Minnesota, uh, Nebraska, British Columbia, and Alberta and Northwest Territories. And if we can get that interaction going where we're within 20, 30 meters, we're going to get some good videos, some good pictures, and, maybe pick up some fecal matter, maybe scrape up some urine, maybe get some hair samples. You never know. And if you are sitting close with them and you're getting the video and pictures of the soles of their feet, we'll now have conclusive proof or of whether or not they have the mid-tarsal break. And we'll see the epidermal ridges on the sole of the foot. We'll see the fingerprints, and maybe we'll get fingerprints. Maybe we'll get oil. Maybe we'll lean in with a swab and wipe their nose where there's a heavy oil accumulation. And, that's how we're going to get conclusive proof. It'll be video or pictures. And, yes, for the ones that want a body, hopefully no one will ever kill one, because I'm definitely not an advocate of that.
Hmm.
But there's trains and vehicles out there, and, things happen. Maybe eventually we will find one. I know of numerous Indian tribes that know where the burial grounds of their local Sasquatch is, but we are sworn to secrecy, like Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, the first one, while those
Hmm.
people were protecting what was it, the golden chalice or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were sworn to secrecy over hundreds of people and generations of their lineage, that they were to protect the golden chalice. And we Indians are no different than that when it comes to Sasquatch. I'm allowed, after consulting with my chiefs of my family and others, I'm allowed to go so far in what I share with about Chonaka Sasquatch, but then I
Hmm.
have to stop. And a lot of tribes now with social media, and they're seeing my presence on social media, documentaries, one movie, and they're like, he's right. I got to share my tribe stories, and I'm getting information from Indian tribes every so often that no white person has ever gotten. No offense for using that term, but no
You're fine.
Caucasian white person has ever gotten as close and in depth with some tribes as I'm doing. And it's because people are realizing that he's right. We're sitting here now in British Columbia, where I come from. I was a commercial fisherman for 45 plus years. I helped exterminate many runs of salmon and other marine resources. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that we've logged all our trees and we've harvested a lot of our fish and other marine resources. And rivers that you should be able to walk on top of the backs of salmon side by side for a kilometer or more aren't like that no more. Here in Washington State and up in British Columbia more so. And Sasquatch is seeing the negative ramifications of our existence, and there's people wonder why they don't come sit with us at our fires and our campsites because they hate us, despise us, loathe us, fear us. You got to remember, they have the oral history knowing when their family members had contracted smallpox, influenza, tuberculosis from us Indians and non-Indians when contact and just afterwards took place in North America. I have stories from elders about their grandfather talking about being a chieftain, his tribe sick with smallpox or tuberculosis. And all of a sudden, one of his men say, "You better come out, chief, and take a look. The Gogi, the Chonachas are here with their family members." And they go out and see the Sasquatches holding their young and small, and they're covered in tuberculosis or smallpox. And, they just showed their people were sick too. And the Sasquatches just turned and went into the forest because they knew the humans couldn't help them. They were infected too. So when you have that oral history, and something that was really poignant one time when I was on a roundtable podcast, they were all talking about Sasquatches and why they don't come near us. And they all had their grandiose reasons, and every one of them were out in left field out to lunch. And I said, you got to remember, we Indians, a lot of our tribes call them the watchers because they're always watching us. Well, how many accounts do you guys have of Sasquatches peeking in windows? Every one of them at the round table had many stories about people seeing something looking in the windows. Well, what are we doing when Sasquatch is up and about at nighttime? We're sitting in front of the flat screen watching TV. And what are we watching? Some show based on violence and gore and guns and killing, because that's our main entertainment. Well, can you imagine the Sasquatches when they see that? How would they judge us hairless bipedals after looking in our windows and watching what we watch? Even the newscasts, they must think we're the most corrupt, evil, mean, murderous, psychopathic creature on this planet. And then the other day, that what I just said, the very poignant part came. Someone did an AI picture of a Civil War US battle between the blue coats and the gray coats, killing one another, cannon explosions. And there was a Sasquatch peeking from a tree looking at that battle. Well, that took place at Plains of Abraham in 1812, the War of 1812 between Canada and the US. That took place during the Civil War in the 1860s in the US. But then again, think even further back, because most white people never think like I do, because I'm an Indian. Know your history, so you're never destined to repeat its failures. Sasquatches who live for 150 to 180 years, as I've learned from the native shamans who taught me about them, well, they have oral history that my family has oral history that goes back tens of thousands of years. Well, Sasquatches have oral histories that go way back as well. And they're talking about the Battle of Wounded Knee, the Battle of Greasy Grass, otherwise known as Little Bighorn, where Custer got killed and over 300 of his men. The massacres of numerous Indian villages, the Louis Riel uprising in Canada, where thousands, hundreds upon thousands, if not millions of North American indigenous people died by the bullet, lead poisoning. And after the massacres took place, all the frozen and mangled corpses of the indigenous people, the Sasquatch has witnessed it all. And we wonder why they don't want to come near us.
I mean, it's fair enough. Um, what level of, I mean, you're expressing quite a high level of intelligence. What level of intelligence do you think that they have in terms of mental
Better than you,
capacity?
because I taught you in the beginning, Sasquatch is this human, and you asked me that question. So your intelligence level is lower than them. They're human. What would you eat out in the forest of North America? What would you harvest in the rivers, creeks, and streams? What would you harvest at low tide on the beach? They have laws, very strict laws. They don't seem to have religion because we don't see any effigies of crosses or other things out there. And, we have tree structures, but I don't, I told you what a tree structure is. Someone came to me and goes, "Oh, well, tree structures are like us with a crucifix or Jesus Christ. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, blow it out your back end. That's a bunking bullshit. This is what a tree structure is. They don't have religion. They're too damn smart. They're smarter than us. We're the inferior human. We have religion. Muslim, Buddhism, Christianity. Christians can't even get along. You know, I'd like to see a day where a Muslim, Buddhist, a Jew, Jewish person, and a Christian are sitting at a table laughing, having something good to eat and enjoying some good beverage, be it alcoholic or non-alcoholic. It'll never happen. It's like when you go in a vegan restaurant, you never hear people and laughing. They're all miserable culls because they don't eat meat, you know? So that's what it's like. The Sasquatches are happy because they have laws, very strict laws, and I don't think they have religion. They know better. They're not dumb like us.
Um, so they have a language. You think they have uh like a similar the ability to speak and communicate and complex language?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. the when you talk to the Indian people, so if you're going to be a Sasquatch investigator, or you're going to come from Ireland or wherever the listeners are just right now, and you're going to come to the Pacific Northwest, the Olympic Peninsula, because Tom says it's on like Donkey Kong there, and there's over 200 Sasquatch more than likely just on the peninsula because the amount of abundant salmon and trout producing rivers, and how limited human habitation there is out here. And the peninsula is massive. And you come here. Well, the first thing you need to do is consult with the Makah and the Quileutes and the Quinaults. Depending on what three of the tribal areas you're going to go investigate in, you're going to consult to one or more of them. And you're going to learn how to say, hello, I come in peace. I mean no harm. I've brought you a gift of food. I go in peace. So in my language, yo, Uixas Junakwa. Hello, I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. Uidas Le Junakwa. What are you up to, Sasquatch? And Halakas are wait, goodbye, aloha, kind of saying. More, more formally. Halakasla, go in peace, and you leave. So when you learn the language, and if that tribe has people that are interacting and have been for generations with Sasquatch, they'll have that form of communication back and forth. Because a Sasquatch that's in the whole river of the Olympic Peninsula, he ain't all of a sudden going to go hoofing all the way down to northern Florida and to the swamps and be called a skunk ape. He's like any other Indian tribe. They stay within their tribal lands as they have for thousands of years. Sure, there's been some migration. Most of it was forced by the Blue Coat Cavalry of the U.S. back in the day when they had the Trail of Tears marching people out of their homelands to inferior land zones that couldn't be made into cattle farms or farmland. That's where the Indian Reserve showed up, like the Cherokee and numerous other tribes, no different than Canada as well. But traditionally, we've been in our homeland since the dawn of creation. Kwakwaka'wakw, my tribe, Crees from Saskatchewan, my mother's side. And here in the Olympic Peninsula, they can talk about their village going back 10,000 years because they've always lived here. So too have the Sasquatches. So there's going to be and has been and still is that communication. I don't think it's as in depth as the communication you and I are having, even though you're speak English and you're from a other side of the planet, and I'm here in Washington State, upper left corner. We can communicate to one another. I don't think Sasquatches can carry on a communication with the local humans as in depth as we do. I could be wrong because there is humans interacting with them. I know that, but there is that pigeon form of English and or of communication going on back and forth. So it's one thing, and that's why I always tell people, you know, they're human. They're just bigger, hairier, retain the ability to excrete from their armpit glands as we apparently lost it. That's what the doctors tell us. That's why we have we call it BO in North America, bad odor. And when we sweat and haven't bathed for a while. And that's because we have the remnants of the scent glands in our armpits. Oh, wait a minute. The remnants of scent glands in our armpits? Now we factor that into the translation of some of the Indian names for Sasquatch in North America. We get cannibal giant, cannibals from the forest, cannibal of the mountain. The cannibal woman will eat your bad children. Well, if the Indians are calling a Sasquatch and know a Sasquatch is a cannibal, but a coyote, a bear, a wolf, a cougar will eat a human, they don't get termed cannibal, they get termed human killer. How come when a Sasquatch eats a human, they're termed the cannibal? Oh, wait, like the scent glands. That's our ancestor. They're human too. So when you think about Sasquatch, you have to use your well-developed frontal lobes, apparently we have, and quit being the hairless, stupid bipedal creature of this planet that will defecate and grow food, and their defecation will fornicate for just the fact of fornicating, where a Sasquatch tribe clan will only allow, like a wolf pack, the alpha male and female to mate. You can't just go bump uglies with any old female you want just because you got an erection. There's laws, very strict laws. Wish we had that. There wouldn't be 11 billion of us on this planet ready to push buttons and eradicate each other with nuclear missiles.
Do you there is one theory that I don't know if you subscribe to it, that's fine. If not, you can tell me what you think. But that these species came from Asia, that they came across the Bering Strait. Is that something that you think is true, or do you think that it's a different history?
I, you know, the Bering Land Bridge, look at me. I'm an Indian from the coast. Got kind of big shoulders, bigger when I was a commercial fisherman and working in the bush, but I got short legs. I ain't built for walking over glaciers and slippery rocks at low tide. I'm built for paddling a canoe. And that's how the Indians came. When the fingers of glaciers were coming down from the mountains into fingers of ice into the salt water, we weren't walking over that slippery, cold ice. We were paddling around the fingers, go into a bay, wait for the storm to blow over, go to the next one, go to the next one. And eventually, you're down in Terra del Fuego, South America, after a couple thousand years, because, that's how we came. So, did we come from the Bering Land Bridge? Yes. Did we come from the Greenland to Europe ice bridge or land bridge? Yes. You just go to Google Earth. And, I remember when Google Earth first came out, because I'm able to perceive things better than most stupid humans. I remember looking at it going, wow, white man's magic. Look at that. You can see British Columbia's coast, the Columbia River, and you can see with the side sonar that those ancient rivers went way out to where it's like 7,000 feet. And where the areas are around up to 4,500 feet depth. I remember when we used to fish off Western Haida Queen Charlotte Islands, and we used to mark, and we used to say, there's an ancient river from that inlet going underwater. And that ancient river canyon, the deeper part that we've pinpointed on the chart and with what primitive electronics we had in the early 90s, we've identified that's where the black cod are that we're after with our traps. So when Google Earth came out and I saw that, I just went, oh my God, white man's magic. Look at those ancient riverbeds that go out hundreds of miles off the North American's west coast. And it's like that all over. As I spin Google Earth, it's like that all over the Northern Hemisphere where they've sent side sonar down. My God, where we're living in British Columbia at sea level, back when our first ancestors were here, they were living way out there at the mouths of those ancient rivers that are underwater now because the glaciers were said to be a mile thick in the Northern Hemisphere. So when you take a cookie sheet and put a big sponge in there and fill it with water to the edge, and you squeeze the sponge and you let it go, the cookie sheet becomes dry. That was our oceans when glaciation it was at its peak. And that's why those ancient riverbeds are way out there. And that's where you'll find the old archaeological evidence showing humans were in North America for probably hundreds of thousands of years plus, or even millions. We don't know until we can go do archaeological digs at the mouths of those ancient riverbeds, 7,000 feet under the present sea level. But as far as migration of Sasquatch, yeah, they came with the humans when the water was really, really low. And that's how the camel, the horse, the giant sloth, the mammoth got here to North America. So stands to reason that Sasquatch and Homo floresiensis, because we do talk about the puss in my tribe, the small 1 meter high bipedal hair covered creature. So I think Homo floresiensis is with us throughout North America because we hear numerous accounts from the Indians of Bukwus in my tribe, little people, stick people, little bipedal people. Even in Central and South America, they have two creatures, the Sasquatch size and the little one size. Just like Orang Pendek, the Hobbit, is still running around Indonesia. So yes, migration by coming over to the land bridges during the peak of glaciation, absolutely.
Okay. Um, and so you think it's a couple of the connection is hundreds of thousands of years old between humans and Sasquatch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Things don't happen overnight. Even the human calendar, we go back, it's going back further and further. Look what something Tepe in Hungary, I think Hungary, one of those countries
Gobe
back there,
Tepe, yeah.
to find
Yeah.
that temple.
Yeah.
Look at the temple that's down in South America. I remember back in the 70s when I watched a movie with Leonard Nimoy uh, about aliens and Leonard Nimoy being Spock from Star Trek back then. But I was just a young boy, and I remember watching this show on aliens in this destroyed stone wall city. And I'm looking at it, going, "Nah, no way you could do that with freaking stone tools or copper tools. That's bloody laser beams and drills." And sure enough, now they're coming out of the closet, so to speak, and actually saying, "Yeah, you can actually see the water jet marks, the tooling, drills, possible laser cuts." So how old is that Stone City? Because when I saw it as a kid, I said, no, that ain't thousands of years old. That's hundreds of thousands of years old, maybe even millions. And the evidence is coming now that they have social media, that they're finding aluminum gear teeth, uh, metal and wood handled hammer in coal, and different things in coal that are not natural, but look to be, use the term man-made, you know. I think when we look back at how old the world is and how long it's been occupied by intelligent bipedal species, the evidence is in. There's been activity here when you have dinosaur tracks with human tracks fossilized in sandstone, and they both date to the same day and time. And you have other things that are showing that, pictographs, rock paintings of humans with dinosaurs, oil paintings from the medieval times in Europe of humans with dinosaurs. You know, Something's going on. But then again, we're getting out of Sasquatch because one of the things I found was very poignant in social media was a young girl was interviewing her grandfather or her father, who was a retired CIA spy, and she asked, "What are UFOs?" Time travelers from the future.
Oh,
So that's how I look at it.
that's a pretty interesting theory because that would kind of make sense, wouldn't it? That if we just kept going with technology, that we would eventually get the stage where we could do that. So therefore, that must be happening now already. If we eventually have that ability, it opens a whole.
Well, look what that telescope we invented is finding in the last month. You know, is it truth or not? I don't know, but it's pretty intriguing when the telescope that they've bragged at how better it'd be than any other telescope that's on ground on Earth, and far better than the Hubble that we built was basically the prototype for what we built now, which is the big gun. And It's found a planet with city lights out there. It's found something that isn't an asteroid or a planet with a trajectory that's bringing it towards Earth, you know? So, yeah, science advancement is an amazing thing. And, that's why in Sasquatchology, I have forward-looking infrared devices, FLIRs. I've seen with a FLIR monoscope I've seen well, actually, it was someone else's in Omaha Indian Reserve. I saw a big pregnant female, probably 6'5" or better, with a mate, big male that was probably close to 8 feet, walking across a open field that had soybeans maybe 4 centimeters high, and they were no further than 80 meters away from me, and got to witness that. I recorded with some other people when we were out on a yacht expedition. I had the wherewithal, frontal lobe development, to grab my cell phone and my monoscope FLIR because we were looking and passing the FLIR around to everyone that there was this bipedal FLIR hit, color spectrum, orange, white, red, and green, moving about, squatting down, standing up, walking. I had the wherewithal to grab that monoscope and put it on my video lens, and we could see on my cell phone as I videotaped what was being seen on that FLIR. And now we hold the record for 16 minutes and 40 seconds of documented FLIR imagery of a Sasquatch on the beach. We confirmed it was a Sasquatch because the next morning found the evidence that it was eating limpets, round shellfish that sticks on rocks, it's a mollusk. It was eating those the size of a silver dollar, basically, I guess maybe 2.5, 3 centimeters in diameter and better. And we found tracks. And that next night, when we were doing the analysis of where the boat was anchored, where the bipedal person was, we had Adam Davies, that famous Sasquatch investigator from England, by the way, but he lives here in the States. We had Adam on the beach. We dropped him off, and all of a sudden he phoned me on the radio, come pick me up, come pick me up. It was dark. It's growling at me. We went in with the Zodiac, me and my wife, and as Peggy's helping him by grabbing the 12 gauge and helping him on the speedboat, I had the wherewithal to put the spotlight up, and there was a Sasquatch. I hid behind a tree. And so we confirmed it was a Sasquatch. And I got a trail camera image of a Sasquatch. It's a blurry one, mind you, but it knocked it off a stump because I never use nylon straps. I always hide my trail cameras. And it knocked the trail camera off a stump. And then you can see the trees spinning and everything. The last picture is that Sasquatch leaning in with its right arm, looking down on the ground, the trail camera pointing up. So they're out there. The best thing I recommend is be smarter, charter an Indian guide. Do like all the explorers from Europe that came to North America and wanted to find out about this massive, beautiful land, and they hired Indian guides. So why would you not come to North America to Sasquatch investigate and come hire an Indian guide like me to bring you out to hopefully get a close encounter of the hairy kind, because that's what I'm a specialist in doing. I have
So
forgotten more about Sasquatch than any white man will ever know.
where so did you say you're in Washington State? Is that US or you're in Canada?
I'm in Washington State, US. So
US.
I'm an hour drive from the Port Angeles city,
Okay.
and you get on a ferry, and an hour and a half, you're on the south tip of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. So another 10 days, I'll be taking that ferry to Vancouver Island. I'm going to go up to visit family, and then I'm chartered a boat to go into my traditional territories, northeastern Vancouver Island, my tribal lands, my backyard, basically, because I know it's on like Donkey Kong in the middle of October. That's when all the Sasquatches converge from the salmon rivers and elk and deer hunting and berry grounds, and they come into the island chain and they establish themselves on the islands so that they can go for the fall, winter, early spring shellfish and other foods. And that's when you hear the whooping and hollering, and they're communicating. Hey, what? Where you been? I'll swim over and see you. And they have their little chatter, chatter, chatter. Oh yeah, I was over here during the summer and salmon season. Oh yeah, I went here this year. That's why when I lived out there for decades, I'd hear them in October. I go to bed at night going, la, 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 la. I don't hear that. Go to sleep, go to sleep. Because all the Sasquatches be whooping and hollering from island to island. And, it
Whoa.
was just like a bunch of drunk Indians in a bar in commercial fishing in a port way up northern British Columbia that I did all my life. You'd be in there shooting pool, drinking beer, and all of a sudden you look at the front door and open up, and there's a buddy you haven't seen for a year or two. Hey, Tom, what are you up to? Come on, have a beer. Sasquatches aren't drinking beer, but they're sure hollering at each other and excited to see one another and catch up on what each other's been up to. No different than any other human.
Yeah. So I'm planning on coming to America for I'll be there in January, February, most likely. Um, if I make it up to Washington, will you bring me out?
Oh, absolutely. I'm out
Okay.
investigating every couple of days.
Oh, amazing. Okay, that would be fantastic. I'll try.
I do
I'm hoping.
charge though.
I know
I
that. I know
charge
that.
$200 a day US, but it
Okay.
includes accommodation. You can stay with me at the house, so you don't
Amazing.
have to get a hotel for $200 a night. And what do you call it? I got a pickup truck, Fleurs, all my equipment. I'll just book off time, and you and I will go daytime, and we'll go set up at night. I'll put you on a Sasquatch, hopefully. I
Okay,
can't
that's
guarantee it,
no, I
but I
know you
damn
can't
do a
guarantee it.
good job.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fantastic. I will try. I'm doing a bit. I'm going starting in New York, and I'm actually going to work up to in Florida as well with doing work with the Burmese pythons eradication there to try to investigate what's like they have the pet snakes that have escaped there. They're kind of overtaking the
Yeah, I know all
Everglades.
about it.
So I'm going to work there for a little bit, and then I'm going to make my way over to the West Coast. So I will. Washington is a place I always want to go to. I follow the Seahawks.
If you're gonna find a Sasquatch, it's gonna be in Washington State out here on the peninsula.
Yeah.
Stay out of the pubic hair. Don't go into the forest. You'll never find a Sasquatch. Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson, Paul Freeman, and the Independence Day, they're the only ones that videotape Sasquatch in the pubic hair in North America, the forest. Everyone else who's having great encounters with Sasquatch are out on the beaches, on the rivers with salmon are. So Washington State, definitely. And that
No,
time of
I'll
the
come
year,
up
the
to you.
salmon
I'll
are
come up to
still going to
you.
be in some of the rivers.
I'll come up to you. That sounds good, and I'll keep. I'll be making a few different documentaries for my channel, and when I'm going across America, and that will be another one I'll do because it's always something that I've wanted to do. I've been interested in this since I was a kid, so it will be a real experience just to even go out and uh, um have experience in Washington would be fantastic.
Yeah. But I better run here. I got my football game
That's fine.
to
Yeah, I
watch.
won't
And
hold you anymore. That's fantastic. I'll
yeah.
just stop the recording.
But for all the listeners out there, be sure that you go to Sasquatch Island Facebook group, ask to join. Don't comment anything or post any pictures of anything with circles or woo woo. No mind speaking, orb turning, portal jumping, cloaking, UFO flying, UFO Sasquatch bullshit. I don't put up with it. It's not true. And I'll just remove you from the group. It's called being flushed. Once you get flushed, your picture alongside a picture of a Sasquatch sitting on the toilet laughing gets posted. And I'll put down John Smith from Ireland got flushed because he went into the woo-woo side or he couldn't help himself and put a red circle on one of my pictures. And so I don't follow all that. I don't adhere to that bullshit stuff and I don't condone or support or put up with negativity like that. And Sasquatch Island YouTube channel, if you want to travel the British Columbia coast with me and go to places and see what I recorded in regards to Sasquatch activity and stories of encounters from there. I even do TikTok, Sasquatch Island, and of course, SasquatchIsland.com, my website for my art of Sasquatches and other things, my expeditions, my podcast page, there's all kinds of stuff on there. My Sasquatch maps on the home page. So Sasquatch Island, we're here to help you get the close encounter of the hairy kind, and please feel free to get a hold of me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'll just stop recording.